This may sound a little hokey to you guys, and you may be wondering, well, geez, if I can just figure out my purpose in life, then I'll throw 90 miles per hour and get a scholarship and play pro. That is sort of what I'm telling you, yes. If you want to maximize your potential as an athlete or just as a person in general, which I believe everyone is an athlete, first of all, just to varying degrees, obviously. If you want to maximize that and enrich that area of your life, get to the root cause. In sports training, your overall movement quality is reliant on your strength. Your strength is reliant on your health. Your health is reliant on your mindset, and your mindset is reliant on your purpose in life. When we train at the school, we try to get to the root cause of every single issue. Arm injuries are really common in baseball and softball. What we found in our training at the school is that stability, or lack thereof, travels outward in the body. So, let's say a shoulder injury, like I've dealt with rotator cuff problems in the past, sometimes that can originate in the core muscles, so the obliques or the posterior oblique sling, lower back, things like that. So that weakness in the core can cause an athlete to compensate their throwing motion just to make up for that weakness. And this gets into how movement patterns are reliant on strength, because if you have a weakness in your core, that instability travels outward and you can overcompensate by throwing a little bit differently, and now all of a sudden you're dealing with arm pain. In my personal experience, I had noticed that I had very weak anti-rotation in my core, so that's going to have to do with your obliques primarily. I found that getting better at things like bear crawls, bird dog rows, pal-off holds, anything that is going to train your body's ability to resist rotation of the core, that was very, very helpful, and I was able to sort of fix that imbalance in my muscles, and the shoulder pain actually started to go away. So it really deals with getting to the root of the issue. Now, this is still extremely surface level. We're just talking about the movement and the strength aspect, but it goes so much deeper than that. So I'll get to it in the end of the video. And this is where it gets pretty fun. So talking about nutrition and just overall health, we all know that poor gut health, eating the wrong foods that maybe don't work with your body, can cause inflammation and can also make you feel, a little bit less energetic, make you tired, mood swings, blood sugar crashes and spikes. But what a lot of people don't know is that eating highly processed foods or foods that have a ton of added sugar in it, that messes up your gut, causes inflammation in the intestines, that can actually affect how your muscles perform in your core. When inflammation happens in the gut, your body essentially goes into protection mode. So it kind of tightens up those muscles, they get activated less, and you're not able to perform athletic movements as much, such as rotation or anti-rotation, like in hitting, running, or throwing. Eating foods that are fermented actually started to heal my shoulder pain, which I know sounds crazy, but things like fermented foods like pickles, kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurt, these kinds of things, I actually started to notice overall less inflammation in my body, so less soreness, better joint health, and just the pain started to go away. It's really interesting how that works. Aside from eating fermented foods, I would also recommend trying to get more natural sugar in your diet. Try to limit the added sugars, so things like cakes and pastries and stuff like that. Still eat it, obviously, but try not to make it a habit. Replace it with things like fruit. It tastes amazing, and it's not going to inflame your gut quite as much. And I think that will actually give you a ton of benefits with the shoulder pain, elbow pain, because remember, it's all related. Once you lock in that nutrition side, you'll start to feel better, and that's where we get into the mindset aspect of this video. I think you guys will all kind of relate to this, but there's studies that have been done where it shows that chronic stress and inflammation in the body can kind of tighten you up, like your shoulders get kind of hunched and inward. And so that's a really important concept as well. Stress can cause physical limitations and compensations in the way that you move. So if you're stressed out, your mechanics might change. And oddly enough, I have found in my training with particularly pitchers in general, when they go through family issues or social life issues, like a breakup or something like that, almost without fail, they tend to have more arm pain, particularly in the shoulder. And it becomes a negative feedback loop, because when you get stressed out, it tightens you up. And now when you have that poor posture where you get kind of rounded and you're just kind of tight with your neck, you actually breathe a lot less efficiently and that stresses your body out even more, because we all know you take a deep breath, it calms you down. So you get this vicious cycle of stress, both physiologically and emotionally, just on loop. And now we can really start to get into the root of this. And this is my favorite part of the video. And so this deals with meditation, spirituality, and just general purpose in life. Logotherapy, which is a form of psychotherapy coined by the philosopher, psychologist, and neurologist Viktor Frankl. It's a form of psychotherapy where you use the idea of purpose to reduce anxiety. The whole point is, when you as a person feel like you're moving in a certain direction, or you believe in something, or something really gets to your core of who you are, like your being as a person, it's a lot easier to reduce that anxiety. I find too, in athletes especially, we don't have a strong conviction towards something. We don't play for a certain reason, or we don't have a real purpose in life in general. It's very easy to fall into that negative stress and physiological loop where you're just constantly getting more and more stressed. And this can affect you physically, mechanically, in every possible way. And it really just ruins your performance as an athlete. To get to the root of this, we have to just press the pause button. We're constantly being stimulated with our screens, social media, social life. It just feels like kids and athletes are more busy than ever these days. And this is where meditation comes in, which is way easier than you might think. All you have to do is just find a quiet room, turn off your phone, put it on airplane mode, no more distractions, and just sit with your thoughts. The first time trying this, it can be extremely difficult, especially if you're not used to it. The most common way to kind of lock in and stay present when you meditate is just to focus on your breathing. Don't try to affect it, don't try to change it. Just notice how you're breathing, and then you'll find that you'll be a lot more focused. Now, after doing that for a few minutes, just focusing on your breathing, now we can start to go over that emotional, psychological, and spiritual stress. As thoughts start to come into your head, don't try to manipulate or change them, just notice them and just kind of let them go. So the key here is just to acknowledge that stress, because whether you like it or not, it's going to show up physiologically or in different compensation patterns in your movement. A good example is my shoulder pain, right? If we go all the way back through this, we kind of deduce that I had some shoulder pain, which was probably due to some core and oblique issues, which may have been due to nutrition. Then we introduce the fermented foods, reduce the sugar a little bit. Then you start to feel a little bit better. Now we can address the emotions and the psychological aspect of it, clean up the social life, deal with different issues you may be having with that. And now we can get to the root of really who you are spiritually. What do you stand for? And once we get to that, that is where we can kind of actually get to the root of this issue and then fix it. And I often do this through meditation, which is when I have a second to just kind of be alone and just sit with my thoughts, right? And once I figure out that purpose, now my mindset shifts towards more just serving other people and not worrying about what's going on with me so much. And now that I have a more stress-free and just overall positive mindset, I feel less stressed just physiologically. And so the health improves. I make better decisions with my diet, my sleep, and just overall exercise habits. And then guess what? I get stronger. Core muscles get stronger. Joints get stronger. And then I perform better. My movement quality improves. I do better with all the things that I train right now. This may sound a little hokey to you guys. And you may be wondering, well, geez, if I can just figure out my purpose in life, then I'll throw 90 miles per hour and get a scholarship and play pro. That is sort of what I'm telling you, yes. If you want to maximize your potential as an athlete or just as a person in general, which I believe everyone is an athlete, first of all, just to varying degrees, obviously. If you want to maximize that and enrich that area of your life, get to the root cause, which a lot of times has to do with some sort of spirituality, which looks different for everyone. It's not my job here to be polarizing and tell you guys exactly what I believe, but get to that first, deal with that, then we can work towards the mindset. Once you fix that, you can fix your health, then you can fix the strength, then you can fix your movement, and you will perform better. Peace out, guys. Tony Two Bags signing off. Ask me more questions in my description, and I'll talk about it. Appreciate you guys. See you next time.